Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here and to be with you all. Let's see if I can do a slide adjustment there. The topic for tonight's panel is 2018, the year of the woman. So a brief story to introduce the topic. The most recent previous year of the woman was 1992, when a record number of women ran for and were elected to Congress. A friend of mine, roughly my genre, my age, told me a story about that era. She was a young lawyer then in a big law firm. A senior male partner sent her a New Yorker cartoon late that December 1992. In the cartoon, a man was ripping off the very last date, December 31st, ripping off the date from the calendar. And this desk calendar had 1992, the year of the woman, on it. And as he ripped it off, he said, "Boy, I'm glad that's over." So the question we're going to address tonight is whether all of that is over, or what it means that 2018 is the year of the woman, as so designated. I researched that, and there have been 3, including this one, years of the woman. 1975 was designated as the original year of the woman after many, many, many years of work by the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. And so there was that official designation. Wikipedia says that 1992 was the year of the woman after that, and it just is a popular label which attached to that year after this election of women running and winning in record numbers. It occurred a year after the highly visible Senate Judiciary Committee hearings where Anita Hill was treated not well by the Senate Judiciary Committee, and women then ran in record numbers. So here we are in 2018. Women are running for office in record numbers. I found this statistic fascinating. Emily's List, in 2016, Emily's List received 1,000 inquiries about women running for office. This year, they have received 22,000 inquiries about women running for office. So I think that is one of the reasons, and events of last year, the Women's March and other events, have contributed to women running in record numbers. So let me introduce our panelists. We have 3 amazing Washingtonians to discuss this issue this evening. I will first introduce Kim Wyman. Kim is the 15th Secretary of State of the state of Washington. She's serving her 2nd term, and she's only the 2nd female Secretary of State in the state's history. Previously, she served as Thurston County Elections Director and was the Thurston County Auditor from 2001 to 2013. I love this fact. Between 2012 and 2016, she was the only Republican elected statewide office holder on the West Coast. So she has some street cred here tonight, I think. And just to demonstrate she knows how to hang in there for the long haul, she's a marathon runner. So there's that.
Not yet. I'm working on it.
Oh, are you? You're half. Well, that's way past anything I could do. Our next panelist is Judge Helen Whitener. Judge Whitener's been a lawyer. She's been a public defender, and in the prosecutor's office, she knows a lot about a lot. And I am personally in awe of Judge Whitener because she's a judge in our Superior Court, and that's just she is my homegirl, right? So she holds a bachelor's degree from City University in New York and earned her law degree from Seattle U. She's been on the bench since 2015. She's an instructor. This is so cool. Judge Whitener has done a TED Talk that everybody in the room ought to go home, Google, and listen to. It's astonishing, amazing, and fabulous. She's an instructor in Lincoln High School's street law class, which strives to empower young people to be active, engaged citizens by equipping them with knowledge and skills they need to successfully participate and create change in their communities. She's very active, a very wonderful speaker, and we're delighted to have her tonight. Our third speaker is Alfie Lourdes, one of my favorite names, Lourdes Alfie Alvarado-Ramos. She is the director of the Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs. The department's the statewide advocate for veterans earning benefits and services. She was born in Puerto Rico, served 22 years on active duty, retiring as a non-commissioned officer with the rank of Command Sergeant Major of Madigan Army Medical Center. That's the highest enlisted rank on the post, folks. So. Director Alvarado is the recipient of a list of medals and awards as long as your arm. I could tell you all about them, but then we wouldn't have time for any discussion. So I will just tell you that most recently, and a very few days ago, she was elected president of the National Group of Veterans Affairs Professionals for the entire country. So we are very, very well represented and et cetera. I cannot see all of you, and I don't like that. So I may mess everything up here, but I'm going to adjust just slightly so that I can see all of your faces, if that's okay with everybody, because I want us just to talk here this evening if we can. My first question for you all is if you think it is a good idea or a bad idea that a particular year is designated as a year of the woman. Does that help or does it hurt? Director Alvarado, would you start with that?
I think we need reminders of things that are important. And as you know, society tends to sometimes slip back, you know. And we've had some of that happening, you know, just like a lot of people wonder why do we celebrate Asian American or African American. Well, celebrating women is important. We are technically a majority, but the fact is that time have not treated us well. You know, history has not treated us well either. And therefore, it is important for our communities, for our country, to be able to pause, think, look at the issues, and then move on to be able to make sure that women are celebrated the way that we're supposed to be celebrated, and that you know, there's a reminder for society in that, you know, we count. Because there's still areas in our country and the world, as you know, where women are still not equals. And it's just important that we talk about it and that we celebrate women, especially in our country.
Judge Whitener, I'd like for each of you to answer this kind of baseline question, if you would.
Well, I don't believe in celebrating women in any particular month, year. I think we should be celebrated all the time. I think by celebrating us in a particular year, such as the Year of the Woman, means that next year you may not be celebrating us, or the year after that. So by celebrating women all the time, you keep all of our issues at the forefront of your minds. The problem with celebrating, for example, a particular group or a particular set in a particular month or year, I'll use, for example, Black History Month. As a Black woman, I don't believe in celebrating Black History Month in the month of February. My history is year-round, 24/7, every year. So it's the same being a woman. I think we should be celebrated every day, every second, every minute, every hour, every year, continuously. And that way our issues are not issues that come up when we have changes at the head of any organization, which organization that may be, because we would always be at the forefront of everyone's mind. So for me, I don't celebrate Women's Month or Women's Year. I celebrate it every day.
Excellent. Secretary Wyman?
Okay, sure, you go third and they take all your talking points. Just kidding. I thoroughly agree with what has already been said, and I think I have a 26-year-old daughter, and what's interesting is to have conversations about this issue with her. And when I talk to maybe people that are my mom's generation, there is a very different perspective on what they can do. And my mom was she worked when I was a kid at a time when most of my friends' parents stayed home. My mom stayed home and took care of the, house and stuff. My mom was a working mom, and that was my role model. So for me, that was just second nature. And my daughter has recently been married, and the family that she married into, that was a different arrangement. His mom stayed at home, and so she asked very interesting questions of my daughter, like, do you think you would cook more if your mom had cooked more? Which didn't bother me at all. It really bothered my daughter. And what I thought was, it's happening. Maybe not as fast as we wanted to, but her generation looks at a lot of these things very differently than even mine did, and certainly more than my mom's did. So I think we're making progress, but for me, it's about empowering them. Particularly, I think any woman in this room who's in any kind of leadership role, be it an elected official or a professional or a stay-at-home mom, those are all very important roles, it's showing that younger generation their own potential. And every one of us has a responsibility to do that for our daughters, for doing that for the women that are in our life, and particularly those young women. So I think it's exciting.
Excellent. I spent the day today thinking about millennials and what millennials would say about this, because we've all been around a few more years than they have. And so thank you for that perspective as well. I really enjoy that. So I want to ask you, well, first, I think I'll just declare this the century of the woman. How does that work? Well, can we all agree to that, please? But I want to know what you see every day. I'm in getting to this question, I want to know what you see every day in terms of the work that you do and how you feel like women, what the status of women, if you can silo that enough. I know all of us have, thank goodness, have a little trouble doing that these days. But if you can silo that for me, tell me what you see right now that would make you think that this is an important time for women. We won't even use the Year of the Woman, since Judge Whitener sort of objects to that. What makes you think that we're doing okay these days? Judge Whitener, you want to start?
What are we doing okay? Well, we're standing up, and we're standing together as women. That is new. That is a little different. And the reason I say it's new because we have forgotten what it means to be one, and I'm talking to women now. And I'm talking to women as a whole. As a Black female, and I can't claim African American because I wasn't born here, so I claim Black, not African American. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. I'm an immigrant. So for me, when I got to the bench, what I saw was a gap for Black females on the bench, or females with a diverse background on the bench. And I tried to do something about it. And with the help of the white females on my bench, we put together what was called a Color of Justice program. And it was meant to empower and enlighten and inspire young girls from marginalized backgrounds. Something you did not get in my bio in the introduction is I am Pierce County's only black female sitting on any of the benches right now. I'm not the first, but I'm the only one right now. I am also the first immigrant born. I am the first openly gay for the entire state of Washington as a black female. And having said that, when I think of, you ask now, what I see when I step out on the bench, I use myself as a model for what is possible for not just marginalized girls, but also for the litigants or the individuals that come into the courtroom to see the possibilities that they themselves may be missing if they don't see not just women, because we've always had white women, but we have a lack of marginalized women. So by inspiring and empowering these young girls to see the possibilities of what the legal profession has and where they can go with the legal profession, that's what I see myself doing in this role as a woman.
Excellent. Why don't we come back to Secretary Wyman this time so she's not third 2 times in a row?
That would be bad, yes. So I've talked on this issue a few times to groups, and I'll see if this room is any different. How many of you, and particularly the women, actually only the women, how many of you in the workplace, in your career, have had more undermining behavior from your coworkers who were female than the coworkers that were male? Okay, that's lower. That's lower than what I usually see. One of my frustrations when I entered the workforce professionally was, and I do think it's a gender-driven thing, and I think it's the way that women and men are raised because we're raised differently, in my opinion, that men learn at a very early age how to compete. And I think women learn how to play together. And I think that carries into adulthood because men know, because they've played sports primarily, how to compete. We're going to compete fiercely on the field, and I'm going to play to win. But after the game, we're going to go out and have a beer. And we leave it on the field. And women have this tendency, at least women in my life, have a tendency to try to equalize it out. So we're all even and we're all equal. And if one starts excelling or achieving, then we have to do something to make her equal again. And I say that because it frustrated me when I was at a young point in my career, because so many of my role models were women. And to have coworkers and peers do things that were trying to make me less successful or even it out or whatever that behavior was really frustrating. And so I find that the easiest way to deal with your frustration is find a positive solution. And I've really tried to spend and focus my time in my career into getting women to see that we should be helping each other, encouraging each other, celebrating our successes, helping the other one get that next promotion or get that path to management or leadership. And probably the thing that's closest to my heart and my favorite part of my job is being around young women, particularly high school and college age women, and being able to show them that, you know, I wasn't the 4.0 student. I wasn't the ASB president. I wasn't the most popular kid in school, whatever your benchmark is. And I didn't plan this. I'm kind of the accidental politician, actually, if you really want to know. It was career progression for me. But what I like to show them is I'm very much just an average person who happens to have a really great job. And if you wanted to have a job like this, you could do it. And whatever that Secretary of State job is for you, you could do it. And I just figure, our job is to plant those seeds with young women that they can see themselves doing whatever it is that their passion is. And I think that, I always joke that someday I want one of you to come back and say that you're governor because of that time in the Secretary of State's office with you, kind of like Bill Clinton did with John F. Kennedy. I have big goals here. But I think that that's part of it. I think that women, sometimes we work against each other in ways that are not productive, and that's what I'd like to see changed.
Interesting. Director Alvarado, I'm so interested in your perspective on this because you have been in a very traditionally male-dominated profession. And so I want to know if you think things are evening out at all in the military, in the Army, for women.
We've come a long way, baby. The military has come a long way since I went in the military in 1971. And it was right in the middle of the Vietnam War. And I was a medic, wanted to go to Vietnam, volunteered to go, but being enlisted, unless you were a nurse or a supply person or working logistics, you could not go. So that was an opportunity. Because of my gender, I ended up, not fulfilling something that I wanted to do. Who wants to go to war? Well, I wanted to go. I wanted to do my part. But during that time, the percentage of women in the military was 4%. 4%. We're right now 14%, pushing up to 20, probably in the next 5 to 10 years. That is a big jump. And with it comes a lot of the challenges that society has. If there is bias, if there is, misogyny and all of that, the military is a crosscut of society. So just because you put on the uniform, that doesn't mean that you're a changed person and you behave a certain way. But women have come through the ranks. As you know, all of the military specialties have been open now to women, with no exceptions regarding, physical ability at all. You have to pull your own. You have to show that you are capable of doing it. But we've been doing this all our lives, haven't we? Just trying to do the best that we can. So the work that I'm doing right now in being able to look at those who are going to be our veterans in Washington State is starting to look at the women who are transitioning and being able to show them the fact that they've been in a non-traditional career. Now as they leave the military, they kind of forget that they have been really challenged in performing in something that is extremely challenging, which is, being a soldier, sailor, marine, airman, and start going into areas where there's good money, good jobs, apprenticeships, being tradespeople. Do you know that a plumber sometimes makes more money than some doctors? A plumber or electricians, or people who work in elevated towers working, so now in being able to look at women, being able to inspire them, there are a number of us who are starting to really push women to look to the non-traditional jobs that are out in the community. Because the fact is that the trades are changing, they want more women, and we want to be able to inspire them so that they can get those great careers that are going to be, serving them for the rest of their lives. So the military has changed, the veteran space has changed, the federal VA is changing the way that it's treating women as far as the facilities, the care, the philosophy. So I think we really have come a long way.
Fascinating. Excellent. I want to, however we feel about the designation of this as the Year of the Woman, and I'm really feeling myself in the same space that the three of you are. To me, it's almost an odd designation, but I want to talk about why we are here today. So a lot of the commentary about 1992 again suggests that it was because of Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill and the poor treatment at the Judiciary Committee, et cetera. And a lot of the commentary this year is that we are again reacting to men behaving badly. Not all of you, not all of you. Some of you behave very nicely all the time. But if the culture is going to designate these years, if we are where we are, how can we move past just reacting to the election of a president who talks about grabbing people's private parts? I debated how I should phrase that. So how do we move past this situation of women reacting to men behaving badly?
So since I'm the partisanly elected official who happens to be in the party of, never mind, we won't go there. Elephant in the room, no pun intended. Anyway, Washington State, one of the things I'm very proud of, has a long, rich history of putting women first. We were the 5th state in the country to give women the right to vote. If you didn't know that, we had the right to vote in Washington state 10 years before the 19th Amendment was passed by Congress. In fact, let me just go off a little bit. In 1912, the first woman was elected to statewide office in Washington state 2 years after they got the right to vote, 8 years before the 19th Amendment. And Bruce Standmeyer pointed this out to me on the campaign trail a number of years ago. And she was the superintendent of public instruction, and she was Republican. And I mention this because I'm the second. It took 100 years in this state to elect another woman Republican. And the reason I mention that isn't about party affiliation. It's that Washington state has elected a woman to almost every office that you can hold in political office in Washington state, from school board to governor to U.S. senator. Ironically, so I've always thought that was a point of pride, and I never thought too much about it until I got elected, because I thought it was all women. The Democrats are better at getting women elected and attracting women candidates. So now, after that long intro, the answer to your question is, be the change you want to see. The reason I ran for office is, and the reason I run as a Republican is, this is the kind of Republican I want my party to be more like. And if we want to change things, we need to have more women. We need to have more women of color. We need to have more diversity in our elected officials. Our elected officials need to look like the people they represent. They need to be like the people they represent. And for all of the gains our state has made, and as cutting edge as we've been, we're falling backwards. The percentage of women who represent in the legislature has gone down. I think that's probably going to change after this cycle, but you know, so it's a constant battle. But I think that's part of it, is recruiting and attracting those women and letting them see they can run for office. I'll come back to that one in a bit.
Director Alvarado, would you comment on that?
It's about being involved.
I'm sorry?
It's about being involved. You know, that's the way that we're going to be able to continue making the change. I can tell you that probably was 4 years ago when I really started getting involved in the system, just being able to be part of the system, not complaining about, you know, what I see on television, screaming at the TV, you know, turning it off, whatever, but it's just participating, listening, you know, listening to the other stations, the ones that I normally don't hear, to be able to kind of get the point of view and try to understand, you know, where others are coming from. But being able to, you know, for me, for example, immigration is a big issue. I work with veterans, yes, but immigration is important. If I'm going to talk about it, I might as well do something about it. Help, you know, people be able to learn English as a second language. It's something I do, you know, as a private citizen, or being able to help others in get the citizenship exam, to be able to study, to coach. If we want to be able to get those who are undocumented to be able to get their citizenship, well, do something about it. Get involved. And that's one of the ways that, you know, each and every one of us can actually contribute to being able to make a difference. Because otherwise, sitting on the sidelines is not going to do anybody any good.
I still am interested in the public reaction, though, to the election of Donald Trump. So I'm treading lightly here because I know that some of these questions unintentionally will get political. I don't intend for this to be political, but the question I want to ask is, do you think this would have happened, would 2018 have been publicly designated by the people who do these things, as a year of the woman if Hillary Clinton had been elected president? And Judge Whitener, I'm going to give you the opportunity to answer that first. And Judge Whitener has particular considerations about being political. I'm aware of that. And so speak if you'd like and pass if you'd like.
Well, I'm not political. I have left advocacy when I joined the bench. I advocate now for justice. So having said that, I don't take a side one way or the other in regards to any political affiliation. As a judicial officer, we see many things come before us. So therefore, what has been heightened during these times that has gotten women as well as men up in numbers participating in exercising their rights. As a judicial officer, what we tend to do is make sure that, of course, everyone that comes before the court, irrespective of political affiliation, irrespective of their individual positions, are heard, that they feel safe, that they feel welcome, that they feel like the individuals they have elected to the bench are going to listen to their case impartially, and make the decision as best as possible with the law that we have. If you don't like the decisions that you're getting, then you need to elect different judicial officers, or you need to change the laws. And that's where the advocacy comes into play, and I'm no longer an advocate in that respect, but we are advocates for justice, and your judicial officers are the final, the end of the political gamesmanship, and we're the ones that make the decision based on the laws that you give us. And of course, our lenses are going to be impacted by the experiences we bring to the bench, which is why it's always important to have a diverse bench. Now, diversity does not necessarily mean color. Diversity means experience. Diversity means gender. It means a number of things. But most importantly, diversity needs to be qualified.
Secretary Wyman, I'm going to ask you, would this year be popularly designated as a year of the woman if Hillary Clinton had been elected president?
Yeah, and I don't think that's political. I do. I think it would have been different because I think it would have been celebrated. When you look at the week following the inauguration, and you had all of these marches on Washington and everything, I kind of always figured those were people that were planning to go and celebrate and had made the hotel reservations because they wanted to be part of history. And but I think good. I have to spend my time focusing on the good. I had a tough year last year, so it's about joy. And like so many people that I know, it's hard to find good sometimes in the political system entirely, but certainly after 16. So what I've noticed is that there's a different perspective. So for example, social media. A few years ago, I remember there were algorithms on a couple social media platforms that were putting negative conservative articles first and positive, more liberal-leaning articles in the top of a news feed. And there was a lot of outcry, and everybody's like, well, it's okay. Well, after all the things that came out about social media and how that might have played into the outcome of the election, now you can have a bipartisan discussion about this issue. And it's not the same one we were having 4 or 5 years ago. And so I think on some fronts, they're on both sides, and I can give a lot of examples that are even beyond President Trump's effect. I think that we've got to start coming back to that middle ground and listening to each other and talking to each other and not yelling at each other and trying to just be the loudest voice in the room. And I think that one of the things that I have spent time in my political life, because I run elections, so I try to stay out of a lot of political things partisanly, I really try to recruit women in other states to run for office. And the reason that I do that is I think women lead differently. And that's not good or bad. Women just lead differently. And I think that that's going to be one of the good things that comes out of this election. I don't think it will just be women on the left, although I think they're probably getting recruited and getting motivated more. But I think that the more again, it goes to that diversity, and it's a diversity across the board that we need to have, and we're going to have better representation when we get there. So I think good is going to come from this.
Okay. Director Alvarado, I'm going to shift that question just a little bit and ask you, and I want to follow up on something Secretary Wyman said too, but I want to ask you first if you think Hillary Clinton lost because she was a woman.
I'm so glad I didn't get that.
I knew better.
I do not think she lost because she was a woman. I really don't.
You want to comment on that further or not?
Boy, that's really tough, because I have some very personal opinions about it. She technically won by 3 million, but, the Electoral College is what it is, and therefore a win is a win, but I think that there were some unfair things that took place. There was, we hear it in the news all the time, and if there was intervention by some other country, power, that affected our elections, and if the intelligence community does say that there is proof that there was an intervention by the Russians in our electoral process and the election was lost by so few votes, I tend in my heart to believe that, that Hillary Clinton did not win because she did not lose because she was a woman.
So I'm just going to read a little summary for you, and I want you all to react to this. It's kind of on the same topic. So Jennifer Palmieri, Clinton's communication director during the campaign, has just published this book. And Secretary Wyman, it reflects a lot of what you just said. That is one of the few major premises of it. But what she says is that the campaign was told early on that voters are repelled by the idea of a woman grasping for the presidency. They don't have the same concerns about a man. The voters are suspicious about why a woman would want to run everything. The Clinton campaign was told that Hillary should couch her experience and her desire to be president in terms of wanting to help people, not run things. So, to talk about her previous achievements would make her seem aggressively to be wanting higher office, so instead she should say that she wanted to help. Does that strike you as true, generally speaking? And Secretary Wyman, I'm going to go back to you first on this because you, I think, came closest to articulating something similar when you said women lead differently. Palmieri's ultimate message is women should lead differently. Women are very different from men. So while I don't want to suggest an answer, I would like for you to comment on that aspect, how women lead, how women should lead, and how that's different, if you will, from men. So you've got a little space in this question to answer.
I think no matter who is in a leadership role, you lead from your own experiences in life and the path that you took to get to that place. So I guess I would talk about the difference in how I lead as opposed to Sam Reed, who I followed in office. And when I first came into office, everybody expected me to be Sam 2.0 because I was a Republican and he helped me on my campaign, so clearly I must be exactly the same. And it was an adjustment for the staff who I inherited. And I say that because it's just style. For me, it's just a style difference. And I think that my experience with women leaders is they tend to be a little more collaborative and sometimes almost afraid to be direct and dictatorial because there's a lot of baggage that can come with that. Or at least they're afraid of the baggage that can come with it.
So talk about that for a minute. What baggage are we afraid will come with that?
Well, I'm trying to use not bad words. There
That's
are words
okay, use bad words.
Yes, that there are words that come with that. And if a man is direct and tells you what to do, he's self-assured and he's a good leader. And a woman does that and she's pushy. And so you can spend your time focusing on that and worrying about that. And I think for me, Title IX changed my life. So you talked about your path. For me, Title IX was the game changer. I was in junior high school when Title IX passed into law. And I tell this to young girls and they look at me like I'm smoking something. I remember having the boys' gym and the girls' gym. Boys had the big, nice gym, and we had this little crummy one, and that's where we played our games and everything. We had my personal favorite. We didn't have a track meet. We had play day. The girls got to play, the boys got to compete. So I was very competitive early on, and sports gave me an inside roadmap to the workplace, I believe. Now, I think younger women, it's second nature to them. They don't even think about these things. Younger athletes, I think, women athletes look at it like, of course it's a given, and that's a testimonial to Billie Jean King and the women that went before me, because they broke that door down and we got to walk through it, and now the kids don't even know that it happened, which is good and powerful. It's kind of a bummer because I should give that generation more credit, but I say all this because I think that as women, when you learn how to compete, you learn how to have those moments where you're in that leadership role, you're giving direction, you're telling the team how to move forward, and you're not thinking about those things, you're trying to be your best. And some days you win, and some days you don't win, and you learn more from those losses than you do from those wins. And I think that as more women in the workforce have been in sports, I think that gives them a leveler playing field than maybe the generation that came before me.
Judge Whitener, I want you to react, if you don't mind, to the advice that Hillary Clinton's campaign was given. If you had been running for president, and if you were told you need to present yourself as wanting to help rather than wanting to lead, how would you have responded to that?
I would have missed that memo. I have never...
The question was, how would, if you had run for president and been given the advice that Hillary Clinton's campaign was given, that is, you should present yourself as wanting to help rather than wanting to lead, how would Judge Whitener have reacted to that question? And she said that she would have missed that memo. Judge Whitener, I'm going to ask you to speak directly into the microphone, if you will.
Thank you, and I believe anyone who knows me in this room pretty much knows that I'm a helper as far as being a team player when it's appropriate, but I'm a leader. I don't have anyone define my capabilities for me. Maybe that makes me a little unusual, I'm not sure. I believe in me, and I believe that I can accomplish anything. So the whole concept of, you know, having to follow a man's lead or fit into a role of a woman, what is that? You know, if I want a seat at the table and you're not making one, I will basically get a folding chair, as Shirley Chisholm say, and I'll just slide in. The thing is, I don't fall into these labels and these codes, I call them. If you listen to my TED Talk, you'd get that. In that, women are capable of doing anything that men do. Falling into this concept that we are less than or that we can't accomplish what they have accomplished. I think we've been doing it, or probably trying to achieve what we envision for women separately. And I think it's time we come together and use our forces, a united front. But this whole concept that we're less than men or less capable than men, I don't fall into that. And maybe that is why I am where I am, having overcome the odds, because I shouldn't be here. Tying into a question you asked in regards to the times that we are in, I think everyone needs to understand that in 2015, when I came to this bench, everything was fine for Judge Whitener. It changed where black individuals were being attacked, gay individuals were being attacked, women were being attacked, immigrants were being attacked. All of these labels and codes I fell into. So I felt like I was being attacked. So instead of becoming a victim, which was what was expected, I think, the fighter in me came out, and I found myself in a situation trying to figure out, how do I fight now that I am a judicial officer and not an advocate, because I was a street soldier before, fighting for the underdog whether it's for the prosecutor's office or fighting for the underdog as a defense attorney. So this whole concept, which is why I was quiet, I don't buy into those labels, norms, way of thinking. And when they come up, I try to not fall into it. I think as women, we're divisive amongst ourselves. We need to unite. We need to respect each other's respective positions on things. We're not always going to agree on everything. I think being a judicial officer, that helps me see that. Kim is a Republican. I take it, Alfie, you may be a Democrat. I have no idea, and I really don't care. It's because we're women, and we're seated here trying to make a difference and trying to voice our opinions on things that affect women. So I know that was a long, rambling response, but
No, it's fine.
I don't fall into the norms.
Director Alvarado, again, having come from the most traditionally male-dominated profession at the table, not by much, given the law, but by a little bit, did you, and at the risk of being maybe a little too personal, did you ever find yourself feeling like, I need to help rather than lead? And if you didn't, which I expect, how did you square that? I mean, how did you do that successfully?
I think I learned that from my mother. I come from a very matriarchal family, and she was a great example to me. There was nothing that she could not do. And that's the way that the girls in my family learn. Our boys learned to cook, so there was not that division of, you know, the girl and the boy, the responsibilities. And I can tell you that that is something that to this day, we women sometimes are our worst enemies when it comes to the condition of women now. And we start even before a baby is born. Pink for the girls, blue for the boys. Guns for the babies, you know, for the boys, dolls for the girls. Oh, come on, Johnny, kiss the little girl. Kiss the little girl, hug her, you know? And then we wonder why sometimes boys go after girls, and we go, where did you learn that? You know, so I think we need to take responsibility as women to be able to teach, you know, our kids, you know, to be as gender neutral, I should say, you know, that's kind of hard to say, as possible, because that's what sets boys and girls for the future. It is something that I really believe in, because from where I came from, I come from Puerto Rico, which is a very machista country. My family was not. That was what, when I went into the military and I started going to the schools and volunteering to do things, and, you know, going to the different schools that educated me in becoming a leader, and then remembering where I came from, is what caused me to not look back. I never looked at roles. I always looked at what the job that needed to be done at hand, and being the best that I could do, and be satisfied with that. If I did the best job I could, even though sometimes I failed, I just moved on and tried to do it better the next time. And that's how I got to the position where I am right now, because I'm the first woman to have been the Director of Veterans Affairs for the state of Washington. You know, and it's something that I'm very proud of, but it's something that is talked about, but I work hard for this. You work hard, and the rewards come. You're the victim, you know, that's why you're going to be a victim. It's about just pushing on and not looking back.
So our time is drawing short, but we have space, I think, for one more question or one more sort of theme here. Right now, a lot of the country is saying, I believe her when women come forward. We're shifting to Me Too for a moment, and I'm not spending much time at all on this because May 2nd, the City Club is going to do a whole program on that. But I want to know what you all think about the country saying that they believe her when it comes to women coming forward in the Me Too movement. do you think that will last? Do you think there'll be a backlash? And Director Alvarado, I'm going to let you start on that end of the table again, if you don't mind.
I think that as long as we're truthful, you know, when it comes to our relationships, as long as we have allies, and many of the men in this room, which, you know, we have not thanked yet for everything that you do to be able to support women in your families, in the workplace, you know, in all arenas, you know, so long as, and I lost my train of thought in there.
That's all right.
Please tell me the question again.
The question again is, do you think what's going on with the Me Too movement in terms of people believing the woman, and is there going to be a backlash on that?
And that's where I go with being truthful. I think the backlash comes when there's abuse, you know, or where there's no truthfulness, and there are accusations that, you know, may engage a person that has not really committed the offense, you know, and that this is where, as women, we need to be truthful, and we need to stop things before they happen. You know, we need to be able to, when we something that is wrong, to call it right then and there. If we see somebody being talked in a way that is not respectful, a woman, you know, either by another woman or a man, we should say something, not stand by, you know, and let things happen, because that's how things escalate. And I really believe that this is not going to be a backlash, provided that we help each other, we support each other, and that we don't, you know, we're not silent, that we continue talking about it and not accepting when somebody says that little one thing that if you let it go, it can escalate to the next big thing.
Secretary Wyman, what's your thought on whether there's going to be a backlash over the Me Too stuff?
I don't think there will be a backlash, but I know that I've been uncomfortable because I believe to my core people that a woman or a man who has been a victim of sexual assault, for example, they don't make it up by and large. Yes, there are the occasions where that does happen, but I think by and large they wouldn't put themselves or their family through it otherwise. But with that said, I think one of the things that makes me very uncomfortable with this movement is the lack of due process that we went through, because it became so fast, so furious that rape and a bad joke were being looked at the same level, and they're not. It's gradient, and there are different levels, and it frightens me a little. And what I worry about a backlash is that if we treat the off-color joke at the same level as sexual assault, that's a problem. And that we'll lose the impact of what we need to be doing at this end of the spectrum when we treat this end of the spectrum at that same level. Does that make sense? Without any kind of due process, without any kind of really thinking it through, that you immediately lose your job and we're going to ruin your reputation. And I don't know where we find that sweet spot, but I think that's what I'm worried about, is a backlash is going to be because we overreacted.
I agree, and I'm going to ask Judge Whitener about the due process considerations. So you deal with due process every day in a very formalized form. Let's talk about something different and tell us, with your expertise in due process, what kind of due process, other than the formal judicial kind, can we use to judge these issues? Employers, when an employer has these allegations made, what does an employer do? When a community has a politician who is being accused of a variety of things, but it's not going to be any kind of a judicial process, what kind of process do we think is due in a situation of that kind?
Well, I call the Me Too movement the modern-day DV movement.
Can you say that again more directly?
Can you hear me now?
I can.
I call the Me Too movement, today's Me Too movement, is really a modern-day DV movement. So if you look at what was done under the
DV as in domestic violence, pardon the
correct,
interruption.
correct.
Okay.
Domestic violence. We're so used to using acronyms.
Right.
domestic violence is, if you look at how that started and how that was dealt with by different organizations as well as the court, it's the same process. It's the same process that you're going to have to go through in addressing the Me Too movement. Sexual harassment has no gender. DV had no gender, but when it started with gender focus. And it still is gender focused because at the core of it is really economics. And there's a disparity between the economic situation involving women and that of men. So, can I give you a step-by-step procedural due process guide map? No, I will not do that, because then you end up in a box. It's still a movement. It's still moving. There are moving parts. But I think your guideline is domestic violence. If you look at how that was handled when it first started over 20 years ago, because I was at the forefront of that too, it is the modern day DV movement. And it's going to work its way through the courts pretty much along the same lines, but do keep in mind, it is not gender focused. So men need to be heard just as much as women. And what I see happening is there's a tendency, like it did back in the DV, when DV first became an issue for the courts and for most people, and it came to their forefront of their minds, that they were paying attention to the woman. And what happened is men felt like they were left out. The Me Too movement is going along those same lines. But I think we need to learn from, or look at what we went through on the DV situation, learn from it so we don't repeat it in the Me Too movement moving forward, where men now are feeling as if there's a backlash there shouldn't be. We do have something to look at, and we can use that as a roadmap going forward on the Me Too movement.
Thanks for that. So I'm going to surrender the microphone and give you all the opportunity to ask questions. And I think Ronnie is going to accept raised hands and that kind of thing. So we'll turn it over to the group to ask additional questions.
No questions. This is a first for me.
Hello. Thank you so much for your time today. I am, I guess, technically a millennial. I don't know. So it was really nice. My name is Carolyn Cole. I work for the Washington State Supreme Court on one of their commissions, the Minority and Justice Commission. And one of our members is Judge Whitener, so I'm here to support. I guess my question is really, I've heard over and over again tonight the mention of what we need to do as women is a united front. And we have very diverse backgrounds. I still see that also as a big problem. How do you propose or suggest that we do that? And I can just say maybe just for today, we maybe talk about crossing racial lines. I, in my own life, have not found any white female allies all throughout my education and my work experience. I've actually been verbally attacked by white women that I've worked with. It's been really unfortunate because I do see the power in coming together. So I can only speak from my personal experience. I don't really see it happening. What do you propose? How can we, as women from different racial backgrounds, really come together?
Well, first you need to go to the Secretary of State's website and you need to come work for me. But I would say it's the big things and it's the little things. So if you are in upper leadership positions, management, whatever, take those opportunities, and they are you can have the formal ones, you can have the emerging leaders group, and you meet with the young up-and-coming women, once a month, and you talk about opportunities and share your stories. Just sharing the stories sometimes is enough to inspire. But I find it's the day-to-day little things that matter just as much. And from the leadership perspective, my staff is watching the little stuff and how I make decisions and in those moments of ethical choice that really no one sees but maybe a handful of people, and that's what they notice. And I think those opportunities that we have as women to sometimes as simple as encouraging someone to take a risk, apply for that job that might be a little bit of a reach, or take that class, or whatever it is, letting them know that they can do it and, oh yeah, you're gonna be great at it. One of the things I learned about women running for office, for example, if you have two women, a woman and a man, same resume, same background, position comes open, 70% of men say, oh, I'm qualified. 40% of women think that. But if you talk to the woman, you say, you know, you would be great on the school board, you're involved in PTA, and you'd be great. Women get to that 70% mark. Women have to be asked to the dance. And it's the same in the workplace. A lot of times it's that just simple encouragement or support or help to help peers, help people above you, help people below you reach their potential. It pays off in droves. And I think it's some of that simple stuff that we just need to keep working on, and I'm hoping that all of these things that have happened in the last 2 years do that.
And I just would like to add is seeking mentorships. You know, because there are a lot of women of all colors, white, black, Hispanic, you know, that are willing to be able to be mentors. And sometimes it's just asking. You know, you admire somebody, you work with somebody that you really want to be, you know, to know more of. It's being able to say, you know, I would like to have coffee and just talk about, you know, have some questions. And that's how, you know, engaging somebody that would be able to contribute to your personal and professional growth sincerely, to be able to seek them, not to use it as a stepping, you know, stone, because, you know, you can see right through it. Sincerely ask to be able to get mentored, to seek, you know, some counseling, just to be able to look at situations that helps. And I can tell you, my mentor was not a woman. Actually, you know, the person, Leo Rouse, who forever I'll be grateful, he was a black man, an amazing man. And he taught me about class. He taught me about, you know, seeking answers. He taught me a lot of things, but I asked him. I said, you know, I want to be like you. I really want to learn, you know, what is it that makes the person who you are. And he shared with me some, and he was a male. You know, I should have been uncomfortable, but I was not, because he was somebody that I admire. And I think those who are asked will give, and therefore you'll be able to broaden that, you know, that sphere of influence and sphere of allies that are going to be able to contribute to your future and your professional growth.
I think mentorship is huge, especially for individuals from marginalized backgrounds. Having said that, none of my mentors were white females. And I think that's a sad commentary. All of my mentors were white males. And I don't know if it's because the white females felt a sense of competition, like we had to compete with each other or something, but none of my mentors were white women. And I have no idea why. I'm still trying to work through that. But I reach out, I mentor, and I think and that's why I was saying, as women, we need to come together. We're not competing with each other. If one moves forward, all move forward. And I had this discussion with my wife, who's American, and who's retired military as well. So her perspective is a little different in a number of areas. But I had this discussion with her, and I was like, what is it? Why is it you in the military was able to get along well with the guys and move up in the ranks and retire as a command sergeant major, yet if you were outside in the world competing with everybody, white men are the ones that are helping us and our sisters are not? And I think that's a question for our sisters, because I don't have the answer, but I do know that we are here, and maybe that's why women have moved forward as far as we would like to on so many different things, because we're divided amongst ourselves. So I don't know what the answer is, but I do know my mentors were white men, and maybe they didn't feel threatened or uncomfortable, but I really don't know what it is, and I do speak my mind, so hopefully I didn't make anyone uncomfortable. But the thing is this: you must have safe spaces to have these discussions, and the question that was raised has to do with how do we help the next generation deal with this, because it's been going on for a while. So you're hearing it from the judge.
Thank you. My name is Lisa Mansfield. I work for the Department of Assigned Counsel. I'm a dependency attorney. And my question is a simple one. What do you do when there are obstacles in the way? My mother taught me to go around like water, but some people meet obstacles head on. I just want to know what your style is.
I go through it. We have a saying in my country, where I was born and raised: never let the left hand know what the right hand is doing. And as a marginalized individual, many folks, when I got to this bench, were probably wondering, how did that happen? Because I never participated or went through the normal route that most folks take. I did not participate in many bar associations, didn't hold many of those positions. And it's because I already knew that even though they were there to help, they didn't help someone like me. So while they were looking at my left hand and trying to limit my capabilities, the right hand was moving and doing what I needed to do to get where I needed to go. So when I got there, it was a shock to them, not a shock to me. Because it took a lot of hard work and it didn't happen overnight. So for me, I go through it, but never let the left hand know what the right hand is doing as far as a marginalized individual, because if they do know, they stop you.
So for whatever reason, my lot in life is to be the outlier, and I have always, from the time I was a kid, if there's that one outside person, it tended to be me. It was a good thing. I was blessed, and I think we've had a lot of conversation today about women power. My women power came from my mom being a strong role model, but my dad was the most supportive person in my childhood that he should have been, but he had 2 daughters, so we did everything. We mowed the lawns. My 12th birthday present, I shouldn't admit this on TV, but was a 22 single-shot rifle that he made for me. And I learned to shoot. We went camping. I did everything the boys did. And up until probably, junior high school, I didn't really know that I couldn't do whatever I wanted to do. I didn't really know that being a girl was a disadvantage. I mean, I played with Barbies and I competed in sports, and I never saw that was a problem. And so I think a lot of it is mindset. So those obstacles that you talk about, I tend to be the same kind of approach, as you just go through it. And my approach isn't so much left hand, right hand, as it is just they're not paying attention because people underestimated me. And so when I talk about competing, for me, it's competing with myself. I want to be my best self. So when that opportunity presents itself, I'm ready. And my entire career, as I look back on it now, was being ready when those opportunities I could never have foreseen presented themselves. I was ready to compete. And one of the things I think is tough for some of the women that I've worked with through the years is they don't see that competition as a good thing. And that victim mentality, I love that both of you use that terminology, because I think that's part of our problem as women sometimes is, when there's one job and 40 people apply, there's one job. It is competition. And it is being your best and competing, and sometimes you're going to get it and sometimes you're not. And I think that, you just have to be ready and take ownership and responsibility. I've gotten in trouble in a room like this one time, but I'll say it here now because I might as well. You always hear about the pay disparity. And we talk a lot about the pay disparity. And I'm not saying that there aren't problems with that, but on some fronts, you know, when as a woman you decide, I'm going to take 3 years out of my career to stay home with my kids, that's 3 years that your peer, male or female, is getting job experience, is getting more education, and get more time and grade. So when you go back in the workforce, even though you're in the same job, they're probably going to make more than you do. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, for me, it's like, own that choice. If that's an important thing to you, it's okay to do that, and that's not why you make less money. And I think that some of it is mindset and how you approach those things, and then again compete so that you can get up and surpass them in the future.
There are two things that I really believe with all my heart. One of them is about choosing excitement over fear, because fear is usually the biggest obstacle that we have. And when you're afraid of something, it's going to reflect. It just projects all over the place. And the second thing is you attract what you project. You know, you project fear, you project trepidation, you know, your project insecurity, is going to come right back at you. Everybody's going to react to what you project. And that's why, since I went and left home to be able to find a better way of living, we were very poor. That was my exit, joining the military. I could barely speak English. It was a whole new world for me. I lived in Puerto Rico, living with 40 women that I didn't know from all different countries. I couldn't understand a thing they were saying, even though I grew up with the Sisters of St. Joseph from Brooklyn, speaking, you know, English that I could not understand in the States. I chose to be excited about it, you know, and for whatever reason, that helped me go through. And with excitement, my new job, when I was selected as director for the State Department, all of those things, I could have been afraid, but I just chose to be excited about it. And that helps a lot in being able to, you know, for people, first of all, not feel that you're afraid, number one. And number two, for you to be successful and be self-confident. You know, I mean, think about it. I'm here with an amazing judge and the Secretary of State. I mean, I could be just shaking in my booties, you know, right now. But I'm excited about being with two amazing, great women in our state of Washington, you know, and to me, that's something that is very special. And there are little things that you may think that, oh, you know, they're little things, but if you're excited about everything that comes to you, you know, about the opportunities that you get, not afraid, you know, just go for it. If you fail, heck, it wasn't meant for me. That's what it is. Instead of going, oh my goodness, you know, what did I do wrong? And beating yourself up, you don't beat yourself up. You just pick yourself up and say, that was not for me. Go to the next thing. And I think that's one of the, you know, that's what's worked for me.
Ladies, I'd like to thank all three of you and our moderator, wonderful moderator, Val Zeke, City Club. City Club would like to give you a small token of our appreciation with a 6-month membership, and if you don't feel you can use it, then we'll take it and give it to somebody who can't afford to buy one. But thank you so much for this conversation. You've laid the groundwork for our May 2nd dinner of Hands Off, Changing Mores, and I'm glad that we didn't concentrate on that. The celebration of 3 such wonderful women, for me, to be able to bring you together and to share your thoughts, there's not enough thank you inside of me. So thank you very much for being here.